All right, this is a very special, very special presentation, and it's about bagels. So let's go. Let's watch the video, the best video on YouTube.
Bagels in Brooklyn, hand in hand. Used to be Bagels Brooklyn and the Dodgers, but we still have Brooklyn and the Bagels. Bagel is part of my whole background. Bagels was a breakfast food, a lunch food,
Harry
a supper
Bauer and the
food.
bagels.
These people in the Midwest, they wouldn't know a bagel from a donut. The only reason they ever saw a bagel is one fell off a truck. 4 professors were dissecting it before they found out what it was all about. Life in Brooklyn rotates on bagels. What else is there in life? Hot bagels that taste beautifully.
The process of making bagels, we have to put flour in, malt, salt, and we put pails of water in.
It's malt.
And in the water,
Malt syrup.
we put the yeast in. We mix the yeast by hand, and the machine starts running about a half hour. By that time, all of the work is done, all the processing is done, and then we take the dough out. When we take the dough out, we put it on a table.
Look at how he builds that. He just builds the big block of dough.
This is cornmeal. We put it on here
Pay attention to what he's doing now.
so the bagels won't stick. Then we start cutting it like this.
Pay attention to the dough consistency.
We get it down firm, and then we start making strips. Now we start making the bagels.
I guess everybody knows bagels in New York. It's just one of these things that go together.
See,
where
Harry, you're watching, Harry?
you go outside of New York, a lot of places don't even know what a bagel is. From what I understand, I think the reason for that is the water. In New York, there's something in the water that does it.
These bagels are much better than the machine maker because this is a handmade bagels.
You don't need to do the strip. You
There's
can
a
do
better
one
taste
bagel
to
at
a
a time.
handmade bagel than a machine.
Each bagel that I'm making now should weigh approximately about 4 ounces, 4.5 ounces.
I do
right around there.
4.2 ounces,
On a board
420.
like this, you put them down 7 down, 5 across, 35 bagels on the board. And dough around the size of this, you should get about 90 to 100 dozen out of it.
I wait for the pot to boil. As soon as the pot starts boiling, I take my bagels and throw them in.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful.
These are water bagels. They have to cook. You have to stir and make sure they cook.
This is the best, the Bagel Water Park. Pay attention to their consistency and how they look.
Yeah, I'm putting the onion seeds on, some garlic, putting some poppy,
You're not going to do it this way, but just it's interesting.
some sesame. Now with some salt. The rest I'll make plain bagels. Now, water on. Take the bagels, 6 in a hand through the holes. Spread them on.
that. All right, let that spin around till the tops get dry, and then I turn it over, then I let it go around till it bakes out. It's a 400-degree oven. Now I'm going to turn the bagels over. I let them roll in about 3 minutes.
First, they cook it
won't
on a
stick in the oven when
burlap
they're wet.
wrapped wooden board with the toppings on it, which is, I don't know why they did that, but basically they do that until the tops dry, is what he was saying, and then they flip them over and the tops become bottoms. So that's why it doesn't stick, because it had already dried off. When you do it at home, you don't really do it that way, so. Man, it's so fucking good.
Hiya, Freddy, baby. Give me a dozen. My life's blood. Without bagels, what is the day? Yeah, make it a dozen assorted. That's it. Give me the garlic, the sesame, the onion. Give me them all, baby. That's it. That's it. It's still handmade, huh?
You're off key.
Hot
You're off
bagels.
key. You're
Wait a
flat.
second. Let me pay you.
I
Pay
want
you,
Bobby
kid.
Dylan on stage.
Thank you. Have a good day.
I want Bobby Dylan on
When
stage.
she's
You don't know anything.
She finds bagels. When she's smiling, everybody smiles, everybody laughs. Bagels in Brooklyn. Do you know what bagels are used for? You got a flat, you got old bagels in your car, you fix your flat. Hot, handmade, delicious. It's good for any type of epidemic that ever happens in Brooklyn. Have a dozen bagels and you're safe. There it is. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Nah, it could be them bigger. Without this, I'm a lost soul. You can be living in Peoria, in Ashcan, wherever you live. If you haven't got a Brooklyn handmade bagel, you ain't living. You heard it?
So there you have it. Let's see. Is there not just like an online notepad? There we go. $1,000 grams flour makes a dozen baker's dozen bagels. All right, the water will be variable. If you live in humid Florida, you start low. You live in dry desert, start higher. But let's do this. This worked for me last time. You gotta use a scale. It just makes it easier. So 555 grams of water. 7 grams yeast. It's like a packet. Okay. Okay. Malt syrup. You want me to show you what it is? That. If you can find another brand, do it. This is it's kind of expensive, but this makes like lots of bagels, like hundreds. It's like $8, $10. It's good. It's like sweet, little sassy, little like salty. What do I miss? Salt. You can do the salt to taste, especially if you're making salt bagels. You can use less, but it's nice to have the salt inside the bagels. Okay. So okay, you got 1,000 grams water, flour, yeast. Okay, so the first step is mix 10 mins with a dough hook. is going to be big for the mixer. But I made this batch in a bread flour. I should be clear about that. Bread or high gluten flour is very important. They're not the same, but they're similar. I'd put it in. I have a bigger mixer at home, but I've used a smaller KitchenAid mixer with the dough hook, and it does fit the dough, but you're gonna have to just watch it. It'll push up on the hook and start wrapping around the top, so you just have to slow it, just hit stop and push the dough down, and just whatever. You can always finish it off by hand, but you're looking for the consistency that's in the video, like Play-Doh. No air pockets, really. And then the next step is you set it up see how he cut that big square of stuff. You just want to have like a solid mass, so you can just cut even pieces to do the rolling. So set up your rolling station, set up a tray, dust it with cornmeal or dust it with semolina. Dusting. 2. Cut and roll 4.2 ounce bagels. Like I said, I did like 4.2 because it's 420, but you can make them any size you want. But you'll get about 13 with the 4.2. So there is a little resting involved, obviously overnight, but I like to, after I roll all of them, how he did across and down, wrap it in plastic, and then I let it rest for like 15 minutes or less. You'll see it puff, but then 3 is rest overnight or more. Could be up to 24 hours or more. Fridge. 4 next day. Oven as high as it goes, because you're going to lose heat when you open. Boil water. After the water is boiled, then you add the malt syrup. And you just want to add enough malt syrup so the water is dark, like iced tea color. So like, I don't know, like a big heaping tablespoon. Doesn't have to be science. You don't have to add it, but it's really nice to add it. I recommend adding it. Makes it better. Boil bagels. So you're going to want to boil them for 45 seconds to a minute per side. And then this is the hardest, not the hardest part, but it's annoying. You just want to find a place for them to rest. They left them all wet. You don't want to make it too wet because they may stick. So you want to set up the tray with some parchment paper that's going to be baked on, and you can keep the tray in the oven to get it hot, to preheat it. You don't have to, but it is nice to do that. And then you can throw the parchment on later before you bake. But you're going to want to have a staging area where you stage the wet bagels before baking, because you don't want to use the final baking sheet, because you want that baking sheet to be dry as possible. And you're using the parchment so it doesn't stick. If you wrap everything in seeds, like if you make an everything bagel, sesame seed bagel, then it won't stick really, because the sesame seeds will prevent it from sticking, and salt will prevent it from sticking, poppy seeds will prevent it from sticking, onions will prevent it from sticking, as long as they're stuck to the bagels. That's not the complete thing, but that's the ratios. This is what you're going to want to do. And then this video should help. And then refer back to the previous video for like technique. And then also just DM me or something if you need help. This is for Bauer because he wanted to know how to make bagels. But for everybody, it's really fun. And especially if you don't live in New York, you got to do it yourself. So, okay. Well, I hope this was nice. I hope you liked that video that we just watched. And thank you for coming to my bagel talk.